Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. Happy Halloween if you're seeing this when it's uploaded, or happy Samhain depending on what it is that you celebrate. Today I had no idea which reading I would like to do with this particular deck. There's a few coming out today, so if you're not subscribed, please do consider it if you enjoy this one. But this was the sort of reading that was left over, where the deck told me it wanted to do something, and I wasn't told at the time what. And then just as I was sort of prepping and praying before we hit record, what I heard was, where do you fit in? So I don't know whether that's that you're having trouble fitting in, or there's a situation you're looking to fit into, but we're going to explore it with this beautiful Neon Moon Cyberpunk deck from Pixel Occult, which you can find on Etsy at the Pixel Occult shop, and I do recommend that you always buy from the artist where possible. No affiliation myself, I'm just a big fan of his work. I believe the guy's name is James. Anyway, James, you're very good. I have a few of your decks and they're all marvellous. So, let's see, with a few more reversals I think, because we want to add another 78 meanings. It's not negative, it's just extra info. Where do you fit into what? That's what I want to ask first. Let's get 3. Do you want to jump for me? Thank you. That one wants to come out, even if it's not a jumper. And where do you fit into what? Thank you. I also feel like these two, top and bottom, want to clarify. Sorry if I'm popping this on the table in a weird way. I feel slightly discombobulated. It may be because I've had caffeine, guys. It's not necessarily a reflection on you. Right. Sorry if that's not bang on central. I did my best with the setup, but it's kind of difficult to see both things at once. Okay, so we've got a tower, we've got a 2 of wires or wands in reverse, we've got a 6 of arms or swords in reverse, we've got an ace of zent clarifying, and we've got a supervisor of zent clarifying. So they would be the equivalent of the ace and queen of pentacles. There's a situation of crisis which has led to false starts at your end. I think there was something that you were looking to leave and you were unable to go. I also want to say that this might be something that you're feeling defensive about, with us having the arms suit involved. It might have been something involving a change of location, or indeed a change of location is the reason that you can no longer get away from it in the way that you wanted to, whether that's you physically moving away from something or you intellectually distancing from something that happened to you. It's almost like there was a crisis that you moved with, in a literal sense, like moving house, and then you suddenly realised that in order to escape the enormity of what had happened, the best thing would be to move away, but you'd only kind of just moved to where you were. With the 2 of wires, I want to say that your sense of exploration in the world has somehow been limited because of this. It's giving that you are tied to a person or a job or something, might even be family, we'll get into it, but it's given that you were tied to something which now has more control over you than you would like because it's closer in literal proximity to you. So the plans that you would have made in order to get over a certain hurdle or move on to a certain thing are things that don't apply within this specific circumstance because you're being watched, or because there's some kind of, I want to say it's like web-based as well, because this guy is looking into his phone, right? And the third eye stuff is activating here with this thing attached to his head and with the wires going in. So this is giving like Johnny mnemonic, sort of downloads of information, downloads from spirit, because the third eye is activated, and also his eyes are covered with glasses. So again, third eye chakra, right? I notice his throat and his mouth are covered. So he's not speaking the downloads that he's getting spiritually or the ideas that he's having. He's watching while something plays out, and it's restricting his right hand because of this sort of bracelet type thing. The right hand is action in the world, right? It's funny because I'm doing this reading after I had a bit of a Halloween binge of stuff, and the last thing that I watched was Talk to Me, which I would recommend, not least because it talks about the spirit side of spirit possession in a way that I haven't really seen done on film, even if it's just touching on it. But it makes me think of how the hand, it isn't a spoiler to say that a hand that they communicate with the dead through is a left hand, right? And this is his right hand, so this is very much the human, whereas the left hand would be the receptive hand of spirit, or something coming across in a more sort of passive yin way. This is very sun-based, very young, very action in the world, very solar. This may mean nothing to you if you're not really in the tarot community, but just, you know, if there's anything to absorb about this, it's that there's a person here having inspiration from spirit in a very direct way rather than an indirect way. And that the way that that should be moving is action through the world, but it's almost like that action is limited to a digital domain, and it's also like this person's speech is limited. I'm also noticing that this guy's hair is sort of trapped within that throat chakra binding of the scarf, so it's like the spiritual antenna can't pick up anything further from the ideas that are coming in because it's not flowing freely. It's not receiving the wind, right? Because hair is a very sacred thing. It's sometimes a way of tapping into messaging, tracking, all sorts of stuff. So there is, again, this theme of tracking, but it's like getting an idea about what to do next, particularly pertaining to surroundings because of this kind of city watchtower thing going on. Having direct downloads from spirit, knowing where to go, having vision, right, with the glasses, but being unable to speak about it and restricted in your action about it to maybe talking to people online in a very sort of hush-hush way, purely because there is an element of observation. My mouth wants to go, I don't know why. But it's like, that reminds me of... It's reminding me of Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men, which many of you won't know, but there's a really, really old programme, we're talking black and white old, called Watch with Mother, that I used to have on VHS because I am also old. And it features these characters that make that noise I just made. But actually there's like, there's something, this may, right, I'm not speaking to everybody here, but in Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men, there was a character that said the word weed again and again. Might resonate, might not. I'm not going to say anything further on YouTube except to say that was in a children's show, and I'm just talking about the children's show, Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men, that is all. But yeah, there could be something to do with that, to do with being watched along those lines, to do with, there's something about the immediate environment, because this really looks like a watchtower to me, maybe even with like a sniper figure, watching what this guy's doing, and this guy's communicating online, possibly through something like Signal, and nothing else. And it's like, it has to be that covert, because if he speaks aloud about anything that's going on, it'll be rumbled. This deck always reminds me, because it is cyberpunk, of Neuromancer as well, and that whole plot of like, be careful who you speak to about what it is that you're doing or what mission you're on, because there's people listening everywhere kind of thing. What is this in the top corner? Okay, so there's a sun card in this as well. So again, with the sort of solar action in the world stuff being prohibited, but also it's like this watching is only happening by day for some reason. So there may be communications going on by night to do with whatever it is that you want to distance from. This tower also looks to me a little like the watchtower here. And now I'm hearing all along the watchtower in my head. Also, because of the deck and because of that song, again, no spoilers, but I'm thinking of Battlestar Galactica and the sort of big Cylon reveal in the latter seasons. I can't remember which season it is because despite having a Starbuck tattoo, I haven't rewatched it recently, but there's something about people not being as they present, but they don't even know necessarily that they're spying for something. You know how like, speaking to my sci-fi fans, if this doesn't apply to you, just take the message. But if you do know that series, you know that some of the people in that reveal, who are essentially revealed to be robots, right? But it's like, it would be moles if it was a more down-to-earth show or whatever. Not that it's not down to earth. some of them don't even know that they are Cylons. And then there's this whole thing where it's like, reveal you're one of the bad guys. And they can't cope with it either. So it's almost like if there is any spying on you or any restriction of your movements, tied to a job, tied to a relationship, tied to anything to do with Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men, right? It's like the people that are listening for all of that and reporting back don't necessarily know that that's what they're doing. They just think they're having conversations with friends, conversations with family, conversations with loved ones in a more general way. So they're being very honest about what your movements are in a way that might be quite incriminating to you. When I say incriminating, that doesn't mean you've done anything bad. What it does mean is that if someone's watching you and you don't want them to be watching, what's giving you away is the people around you, some of whom know exactly what they are and what they're doing, and some of whom don't know that they're giving stuff away, which is to your detriment, right? And indeed, from the Cylon metaphor and the direct relationships there, particularly to Starbuck, who is my spirit animal, it's almost like it's a very direct repercussion for all involved, and they would be devastated if they thought that they were a Cylon, or in this metaphor, that they were giving stuff away about you. I hope that's making any kind of sense. But certainly this, like, where do you fit in? Well, the situation that you're fitting into or not fitting into is that you are being observed in some way by someone or something you wish to have left behind, and it's preventing you from leaving something which I think it would be in your best interest to leave behind you. Maybe even a place. And this may heavily involve two people, because that's the amount of people in this kind of boat along the murky water. Also see previous readings with this deck where I talked about, the sort of Barbalith / Futurama underworld, and the fact that this sea that they're sailing through reminds me of that kind of underground, undercurrent stuff. So again, we're talking stuff that's unseen, maybe in a spiritual sense, or maybe in a black market sense. You do you. No judgment on this channel. Come to me for private readings if you want more detail specific to you. Although obviously I don't want to be implicated in anything. I want to say this does affect your finances in some way, which is partly why I'm thinking about this, because of this Ace of Zen and this offer. But I noticed that the offer is concealing the road, right? So it's almost like there's a thing of, here, have this, which conceals the path that you could go down, if not for this thing. So I even think maybe that the person or thing or whatever watching is offering you something positive, but that's to conceal the road that you would be able to go down if that offer was not made. So there's an element of temptation here, particularly financial or status-based. And then with the Queen of Pentacles, that could be linked to this. This could be a feminine presenting figure that's sort of dreaming all this up in a holographic way in their time alone. And that might be why this action is by day with the sun and not by night, because by night you do communication in a different direction and they think up what to do next. I don't like this energy, if I'm honest. It feels like somebody plotting, scheming. If you are storyteller fans, and some of you are on the channel because I've gone on about it that many times that you've given up and watched it, thank you, love you. This makes me think of the Crows episode with the brothers and the fantastic Miranda Richardson witch character, where she's sort of plotting by herself and doing the charm that she does to the brothers to turn them into birds, which is something like, the words will hurt, the wings will sting, the beak will shriek, the eyes will cry. But she says it so fast, and it feels so, it feels like a traditional witchcraft chant in the way that she delivers the dialogue, and I really love that moment. But I don't like it in the context of somebody behaving around you or misbehaving around you. That's not to say that you're under the influence of magic and blah, blah. And I've talked about this elsewhere on the channel, where I don't really like reading for that kind of stuff, because a lot of people used fear-based readings to make money off people on the internet and to sort of say, oh, you're cursed, or you need to break this karmic spell or this ancestral thing. And then people get very paranoid and do a lot of things that they're out of their depth with, including offering strangers money for things that weren't a problem in the first place, often because of trauma that has yet to be processed or unwound or whatever in a different way. So I don't want to say that that's what this is. What I do want to say is that that metaphor came to me because there is somebody involved in this tower, this breakdown of something which actually didn't have too much of a solid foundation in the first place, who is scheming, right? Who is plotting, who is doing not so nice things behind closed doors. And with it being that character, I'm going to say they're doing it knowingly, right? They may even have attacked your tower with these kind of lasers coming in a very exacting way. They may have gone for your business, or gone for your money or your reputation or something like that. I'm seeing a face of a person that I know who broke down somebody's business of 12 years out of spite. And again, I don't like her energy and I don't like this energy, and it's kind of giving that a bit, but it may not be as serious as that. It could just be that maybe you moved to a place with a friend, or you started a job with somebody and they've kind of gone in a different direction or seen that you want to do that, and now they're kind of attacking you where it hurts, which for many of you I'm going to say is where you work, where you live, or your money, right? But it could be other things as well, especially the extent to which you're permitted to communicate with other people around you in a safe, unobserved way. There's a big social media feeling to this. So that's a whole crock of nasty. It's very fitting for Spooky Day, right? But I'm going to call on the other, older, better aspect of Spooky Day and say to my own ancestors, guides, etc., as well as to yours, if this is the situation and where you fit in, what does Spirit have to say about what to do next and how to break this cycle of moving in secrecy? I've just seen the Fool card. That's a really positive sign for a good reading. So let's get into it. What is it? Why are you being told this? What is it you're meant to know, and why? Like, what do you do next with this information? Because we don't just want info on this channel, we want utility. I'm just going to move these out of the way. Interesting that we have quartz, tourmaline, and amethyst that I picked out specifically for this Halloween layout. The tourmaline I thought was for me as protection, but it might also be for you. So if you feel drawn to working with stones, that might be a good one to buy and carry around and have on you. Quartz is an amplifier of any existing energy, and right now it's under the tourmaline, so extra boost of that. And then amethyst can be about kind of clearing out psychic debris. So it sort of rings true that it's not that one, it's this one. There may be a sort of misleading of intention, by the way. It's not that one, it's this one. That may be like leading you down a primrose path in some way involved. Yeah, so the amethyst, clearing out old energy, stagnancy, negativity, if you believe in positive, negative, you know. But clearing out that which is done and kind of raising the vibe of everything. So amethyst is a really good counterpart to all this. I actually normally have an amethyst here, Chonky Boy, you may have seen him, but he's in the window right now because he's been working overtime for me. So again, it's sort of relating back to these personal associations and references that I've been getting are definitely sort of correct for the reading. Okay, so we've got the Lovers in reverse. We've got a Five of Cups in reverse. That's interesting. A Six of Cups. A Four of Wands reverse, or a Four of Wires. A Nine of Arms or Swords. A lot of these came up in the last Neon Moon reading. I'll link it in the description because I really have like super extra quadruple shuffled this, and yet we're getting a repetition of cards from the last time I used it. So there's an additional reading down below if you're interested. Yeah, and then we have a Priestess, or a 2. Let me take a sip of my drink. Okay, Lovers reversed is Again, a reducing of options, a limitation in the choices that you can make, but particularly in this reading, and especially if you were in some kind of same-sex connection or some kind of sexually fluid, sexually open or bi connection, I'm hearing. This might be relevant to the Tower being the ending of a relationship or the ending of a situation that you had that involved, I want to say, 2 other people because of this. Just for some of you, this doesn't have to be a love reading, but because this is a same-sex image and because these two are very alike, what I'm getting is either a same-sex partnership where you look alike, or something sort of a bit less conventional, a bit less compare, a bit more fluid, where 2 of the people involved were very like each other, right? Or had similarities in appearance, or, I mean, you may have a type, or someone else here may have a type and it's you and someone else, or something like that. But again, only take that if it resonates already for a love reading. I do feel that the overall effect on you is more to do with money, work, reputation, where you live, than it is to do with whether you're able to move on in a romantic sense. But there's certainly a restrictive energy coming in here. And as I say, the other meaning to the Lovers in this sort of position is a restriction of choice, particularly a restriction of financial choice, with it coming out below the Ace of Zen, where I sort of put it. This is, again, it's that offer that was made to you, like, here, out of gratitude or out of our long-standing connection or out of respect for your Tower situation or whatever the spiel is, have this. I'm going to be really kind and get you out of a bind here with money or an offer or a job thing or something. But actually, it's obscuring the path. It's restricting your choices, right? So this is let me help you out of a financial bind, but know that you're emotionally indebted to me indefinitely. Or that I can use that against you in a social context and say, well, I lent them all this money and they've done blah, 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 and they've moved on with their life. Boo-hoo, you know. Or it's, let me offer you this job within a company, but let me not tell you that actually it restricts your movements within it. It restricts where you can live. Perhaps it requires you to move from place to place in a way that you would never have agreed to or anticipated even. There's just something here coming in which looks like kindness, but is actually obscuring what I want to say is the road that you were meant to go down, right? Because this pathway between things, it's, again, the pentacle symbol is here, not on the card, not on the note even, or the credits or whatever. So it's like the way to ground is actually to take the street instead of to just take the money. Does that make sense? It's like Saturn coming in and shoving Jupiter out of the way, to you astrologically minded. It's like there was a path to expansion here, and what instead is happening is a benefic restriction, or a restriction that's meant to sort of teach you discipline or duty, or is meant to come to you in a very ordered, organised way. And in fact, rather than standing for those more traditional or long-standing values, rather than being symbolic of, for instance, a connection that's been going on a long time and a friendship that's been built up, it's actually a way of stopping you from moving through the world in as expansive a fashion as you should or could, right? Should is an iffy word, but when I say should in this context, I mean in terms of your greater destiny, in terms of your maximum happiness, shall we say? 5 of Cups reversed with the Tower, it's like whatever came crashing down, I think the world expects you to grieve it more than you do. Or actually there's more of a silver lining in it than there is a sensation of loss. And that's not to say that this thing wasn't terrible, particularly if you were attacked from all sides in some way or lost something like credibility or a job or a place or a set of friends even, or whatever. But there's something about this that is better than having it. And again, the Tower doesn't come down if it has firm foundations, and that's sort of the root message of the card sometimes. Notice as well that there's all this signage around the Tower. So there's something here pertaining to advertising in a way that is not soul level legitimate to you. there's a lack of authenticity, that you had to put up an identity in neon signs for the rest of the world in order to maintain the integrity of the building, the integrity of the structure that you'd built with whatever this thing was. So if this is a job that was destroyed, my feeling is that you had to not be yourself within that environment in order to survive. If this was a relationship, there's a sense that you were telegraphing to everybody that it was going very well, whilst actually hiding that it was fundamentally rocked at the foundation. It makes me think of a friend who has had a real hard time with the grief of a long-standing relationship. But actually, I remember text messages from that friend at the beginning of the relationship saying it's not going well. And it was no surprise, sort of years later when it did explode. It's like almost you've forgotten the things that you used to say when you were in your integral self about this thing. So now you're choosing to say, oh, it's fantastic, it's always been fantastic, what a shame if it was to come down. But in the beginning, I don't think that was your position. Or I think that you initially acknowledged that you had to step outside of yourself and your personal integrity in order to do this thing, be in this place, be with these people, whatever it is. And it's like you've telegraphed for so long, this is what I wanted, I promise, that now that it's come crashing down, yes, you do feel a grief. Because you've been in the habit of telling everybody how much you would miss this thing if it was gone. But I think this is telling you to tap into the side of yourself that's like, even if it's just a tiny part of yourself, it's like, well, this was always going to fail, right? Because it wasn't part of you. It may have been something that's taken a lot of skill, dedication, commitment even, to build up to the position that it was in. But initially when you entered into it, I don't think it was integral to your core self. And I think therefore there's perhaps a conflict underneath any grief that you've publicly been feeling, perhaps even a conflict that you've been talking to people about online in some way, where you're not as mad as you should be, or you're not as sad as you should be. Like you're sad and mad that it came down. You're especially aggravated if you feel that it was attacked in some way by an outside party, or that it was broken down in a fashion that was out of your control. Control is a big theme with all of this. But I think that if all of that was set aside, and if there was no real risk involved in losing it, you're not that mad that it left your life, right? Or there is a part of you that can be accepting of it, is what I want to say. That's not to diminish how you feel if indeed something has gone horribly wrong for you. It's to say that if I'm honest with this reading, where you fit in is not actually as the person who's lost this great thing that was so integral to them. It's as a person who built up something they knew kind of wasn't for them, in a way, convinced themselves that it was, and then watched it come crashing down as a result of that self-deception, which is another meaning of the Lover's Reversed, right? It's this kind of mirror image consoling the other half into saying, no, really, we did want this. No, it's a shame. Are you okay? It's like a gaslighting of self. And what I want to say on that, I'm not a medical professional. Please do not take my advice as professional advice in that sense. But if any of you have been gaslit as children or gaslit in former relationships, speaking from personal and professional experience, that gaslighting pattern is something that you can then turn on the self, right? You can self-sabotage in a way that you convince yourself is the positive thing, because you're almost used to things feeling more murky, more wrong, and being told that they're the best way, than you are to directly experiencing clear, unobstructed, non-confusing successes, right? Because often you were pushed down paths by parents or other figures, relationships even, where you're told repeatedly, this is what you want. So if you're not receiving from the outside world, this is what you want, you don't believe that you do want it, right? I laugh because I've been here too, right? And it takes a long time and a lot of, therapeutic work in whatever realm, be that psychotherapy or magical work, to kind of get to grips with what it feels like when you don't have to telegraph to everybody that this is what you'd like, because it's just you, it's just part of you, it just is what you want. So there's some of that as well. And again, it won't be for all of you, but it's like, how much was this thing what you got good feedback from everybody else on in terms of what they were telling you wanted, versus how much of it was something that felt natural to you, easy to you, part of your core identity, part of your spiritual mission, part of your, not even logical, but your intuitively easy next step. Did it feel like a comfortable spirit-led process to pursue this thing? Or did it feel like an uphill struggle that was approved of and cheered on by everybody important, so it became easier, right? There's definitely that question. There's also, again, just for some of you, and particularly if you're taking this as a kind of love reading, there's a sense that this sort of covert communication following this and the restriction of it and being spied on and all of this ties to you having a breakdown of relationship with one person and being in communication with someone else who perhaps you want to turn this Five of Cups this way with, right? Because the Five of Cups in reverse is an ending to grief because you realise what you've gained. It's, this wasn't the thing that was meant for me anyway, particularly when it pertains to repairing, reuniting, a union, a twin flame type scenario with another person. If this, and I hate the K word, but I have to say it because every other channel is using that term and you'll probably know what it means, but if this was a karmic appropriated version of the term, then this is the kind of, again, storyteller, the true bride, right? Or the true person that you can repair with in the absence of this situation. But what I'm feeling is that this situation still has a financial and possibly locational stranglehold on you, to the extent that this communication with another person is fraught or has to be covert in some way. And I'm not really a fan of covert comms, right? I know I've spoken on the channel about some in my own life that have been very romantic, but in general, my feeling as a professional truth teller is that if you can possibly say things out loud and upfront, that is usually the best way for all concerned, even if the truth hurts. So do be careful, particularly if you are in an energy of being gaslit by those around you, or having people intentionally or unintentionally send you down the wrong path for your own good, that you're not slipping into an equally iffy energy by feeling resentful about that process to the extent that you contact somebody else in a low-key way that would hurt those around you or would hurt that person, or even that's damaging to you because you're not yet out of these murky waters, yeah? Okay, so we've got a Four of Wands, and then this was the Six of Cups. And because this is under this spider-pond figure, what do I want to say about this? There is a craving for social stability, certainly, because this is like a, you know, very clearly a club scene, but it's also a card of building stability. It's holidays, it's parties, this is accurate for it. But more often than not in a reading, I see the Four of Wands as more in a four energy than a wands energy. So less parties, celebrations, appreciation of circumstance, and more in the realm of stability at home, long-term agreements, marriages, contractual things that you feel very comfortable in or that lend stability, security, etc. Buying a house, these kinds of things, right? And that's turned upside its head for you, that's what I want to say, because of this situation of being observed or being sort of trapped. There is also a feeling of lack of connection here as well, because where we've got this blockage to a social situation that would lend comfortability, and I'm hearing credibility as well, so that may play into all this. It's like you can bond, but you're bonding one-on-one, right? You're sharing your milkshake or your Red Bull or whatever this is with just the one person, and even then you're being watched in the background. Whereas what could be happening if you were out of this situation is that you're happy with everyone, you're partying with everyone, the social realm is open to you in a different way. So yes, I do feel for many of you that this whole thing was financial or jobs based, and that the restrictions are also financial. The temptations, the blockages are also financial. I'm hearing gambling for some of you. But the thing that it's inhibiting you from the most in a weird way is being more broadly social. Excuse me, hiccups, confirmation. Expanding in terms of building a better network, better connections, right? That may also lead back to the Bill and Ben Flowerpot Men take on this, if you follow my lead, right? It's sometimes building a wider network for something can be very lucrative, and yet that network is inhibited by who knows who, and I won't say more than that on that bit, but I do read for everyone, right? So the Six of Swords with the Nine of Swords and this terrible figure here. What am I getting with this? I mean, the last time I read with these, I got a sort of psychic surgery vibe from this, because the reading was about somebody who's tired of the healing process, tired of the relentlessness of spiritual work. So that may be relevant, and again, linked down below if I remember. But with this, I'm actually seeing this person in the chamber and the wires. And what it's making me think of is when they resurrect Lilu from the kind of disembodied hand, again with arms, hands, with the talk to me type stuff. But it's making me think of how they reconstruct her from that. And that makes me think of a thing that I saw recently about the Born Sexy Yesterday trope, and a sort of response to that, and talking about sexualization of infantilization and all of these sort of worrying things that are getting more and more popular in our media that sort of go way back. And the argument was like that Lilu is a sexualized object within this film, but that really, if you take that she was built from the DNA of this hand, in some ways, yes, she's centuries older, but in many ways, she's one. and yet the Bruce Willis character is, you know, meant to be in his late 40s, I think. So there's a kind of predatory aspect to that relationship. Now, whether or not that's relevant in the sense of you enjoying the film or even knowing about the film, what I'm feeling here is that in order to get away, there might be somebody that you consider to be an innocent in some way, whether that's a relative, a friend, a potential love interest, something like that, who you would have to disappoint, who you would have to hurt, cut off from, damage with these sort of weapons and things. And you can see that, like, they're having the same reaction that Lilu does when she's born. And then it's moving into this universe which is very much like the one that the Fifth Element's set in. I can't even remember what year it's set in. It's one of my favourite films. But, you know, this kind of futuristic vista is, they're both together reminding me of that same thing. So there's a sense of, if you know more than somebody else who's embroiled in this, or if they are an innocent, you know, read your child, someone else's child, someone with a very childlike spirit, someone that you've cared for as if they were your child, even if they're not, right? Because some of us are sort of have that put upon us for various reasons. This person you feel would be at risk if you stepped away from this situation. And I think that, you know, for some of you, that's a very direct financial risk. If you make less money, there is a child who will suffer as a result. For others of you, it's a bit more indirect. It's a bit more sort of socially iffy or gaslighty, or dare I say even magical for one or two of you, but that won't be anywhere near all of you. There's just something here where, like, you're looking out for someone else. And with these two figures, as well as the sort of triangle interpretation, there's also the idea that you are leaving this situation with somebody that you are caring for. Again, thinking of the same friend as I thought of earlier, but certainly if you have anyone to protect around you who is also in the same friendship groups, the same kinds of circles as a prior business, a prior relationship, anything like that, your feeling, I think, is that they could get caught up in the harm of what it is that you decide to do next. But what I want to say about that is that if we are identifying this figure with Leela as a metaphor, she's a supreme being, right? And I'm hearing the line, supreme being, me protect you. So it's like, yes, she's a child. Yes, she's vulnerable. Yes, there was a predatory aspect to that film in real life and in the filming of it, right? But there's also something here about this person being just as capable as they are innocent, or just as able to see all of this stuff as you are, even if perhaps they come to realizations a little later than you did. So yes, protect those around you. Yes, it's important to seek the best possible lives for our dependents or for our partners or whatever this may be. But also know that there is a degree of capability with this person. And if they're a minor, know that spirit is looking out for them as well, right? And I'm not advising anybody to do anything directly, particularly where the flower pot men world is concerned, because it can get very dangerous. But what I am saying is that this person will be looked out for, and that you are at your best in terms of caring for them when you are more worried about what it is correct to do than what it is best to do from the perspective of fear. I hope that makes sense to you. I feel they'll be all right as well, because it is a 9 of Wands. So this is someone who is wounded, but not necessarily out of the battle, right? It's somebody in recovery or in some kind of suffering, but they're not out of the game just yet. And again, with you traveling with this person in this card potentially, I think that if you're out of the woods, so are they. And this is almost your sort of nudge from what I work with to say, if you want to ensure this person's safety, the best thing you can do is get out yourself and take them with you, right? Whether that's moving away, whether that's cutting contact from someone or something, whether that's declining an offer very politely and carefully to somebody that you know is secretly obstructing your path, or whether it's to go down a completely different route with your life, following your instincts so that you don't have to broadcast to other people what you're doing, because you know that it's correct. And that's a huge thing, right? It's sometimes taking the scarier path is almost a less scary thing to do, because even though you have every naysayer in your world telling you that it's dumb as shit, you just feel the rightness of it. And I think sometimes you can go in the other direction, as it seems that you may have, where because everybody is affirming back to you, this is absolutely the best job to take, this is absolutely the best partner to be with, this is absolutely the best identity to be living under, etc., etc., etc. You may go down completely the wrong road with those kinds of messages coming back to you, whilst having to nod and smile at everybody as if it is the correct route, right? And then you get to a terrible place at the end of it and realise that it wasn't your destination. And then it's like an even trickier thing to turn back to those people and say, I'm sorry, I'm going the other way now. Your guidance was very well meant and I love you, but this wasn't my path to take. So sometimes being the maverick, being the wild card, embracing the Jupiterian energy that we talked about previously, and just relying on your own sense of your own expansion, your own inner pull to what it is that you feel would be just the most interesting, the most enlivening for you, is actually the best way, the safest way, right? And again, I've spoken before on this channel, particularly during the pandemic, about how some of the people that I know that had taken the safest career routes and things were the people most badly hit. And some of the people like me who'd gone down the risky creative sort of routes and realms, we were okay, right? Because we'd started by following our guidance and we'd finished by following our guidance, and it had never steered us wrong, even when it looked like it was about to. Whereas people who had made their decisions from a fear-based place were losing jobs that it turned out were only secure if a company was still around, or were only secure if people were managing their money in specific ways, right? So it's this thing of like, what is guaranteed safety? What is guaranteed security? Versus what is your inner knowing guiding you through something which will not steer you wrong. That's not to say to be a hedonist. It's not to say to do anything illegal or to treat other people badly. It's to say that really sometimes you do know best. And I'm hearing Mother knows best from Tangled, which again comes back to the gaslighting thing, even if it had nothing to do with a mother. It's this thing of, are you going to listen to everybody around you telling you what the safest route for your life is? Or are you going to live your life? Because take it from someone who's always very aware of this. We don't all have much time, right? Grasp it, take it, do what it is that you hope that you would do in your wildest dreams, and take the people that you care about with you, instead of being so afraid that you might put a foot wrong that you end up building long-standing, arduous constructions that in the end can be shot down in a second because they weren't altogether you. They were fake, they were telegraphing, they were a neon sign saying, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, when actually in the middle you were struggling. Okay, so then underneath this Queen of Pentacles that we talked about earlier, we have a High Priestess. There is a sense that whoever it is that has been watching you is very aware of your possible next moves, perhaps even has a sense of unease they can't put their finger on about what it is that you might do next. If you smell a rat, the rat smells that you smell it. I don't know how else to put that, but I hope that makes sense. And with these cords kind of tying her into the rest of the card, firstly, I get a feeling of the wires suit, even though this isn't wires. So this person may be strongly sexual, creative. They may be into spirituality, particularly spirit communication in some kind of a way. Although I don't know that they've taken that in a direction which is altogether healed, shall we say, or this stuff wouldn't be happening. But they might have enough knowledge within that realm to know that something's amiss, or as I say, to smell a rat. Also, I noticed they're looking out the window, and we had this guy being spied on from the watchtower, so they could indeed, be the person spying very directly, as was said. With a priestess, I do see secrets. I also see this person coming to their own awareness through following your journey. So the weird thing is that if you've got somebody watching your next moves right now in a way that's a bit dodgy or trying to take down what it is that you built, I also think this whole thing is a lesson for them to follow their own spirit. Because as much as they may have kind of, pushed you into a path or a way of being or whatever it was that wasn't entirely for you, I think they're also living in a mode that isn't entirely them. That's not to say that they're very much like you. I think in the way that these characters are facing, you will go down different paths. But what I want to say that all of this for you is an experience about coming into your own integrity in the decisions that you make and learning that the best way to protect others and the best way to unpick a really tricky situation for yourself is actually to follow your own gut, your own spirit, your own passions, and to be broadly social and trusting because you know when you're steering you wrong, right? And you rely on you. I don't think this person has ever lived that way either. And it's almost like in watching your journey, they're going to come to a realization about how to be in integrity with themselves. And for those of you who resonated with a relationship dynamic or a friendship situation involving this person, and that being kind of what ties you to a circumstance from the past, I want to say that your role in this person's contract, if you believe in spiritual contracts, was to free them up from what they do to themselves as well as what they've done to you. It's like you're a little bit ahead in your awareness about what it is that's right for you. Enough that you sense that something fishy was going on long ago, and you've long since gone underground in your communications and your efforts in order to be socially a little bit more sort of tailored to you, a little bit safer, to protect the people around you, to grieve things in a more full way that acknowledges both the pros and the cons of a thing, and to know when taking the money is actually kind of a bargain at the crossroads. these are skills that this person doesn't yet have because they don't trust their inner gut quite as well as you do. Although they do have your level of perception, it's not activated. It's tied by these wires into other things, like their creativity, like their sex, like the way that they express to other people in this same telegraphing, semi-dishonest way. And I think that by you going, hey, I'm severing ties with all this, thank you, but no thank you, and I'm going to head away, even just intellectually, from this, and take my crowd with me, and make some new friends somewhere else, and kind of start again, this person will step out of a money-based or strategic mindset, and will actually, in observing you, realize where it is that they're held back, that they're trapped, that they're a cog in a broader machine that they don't particularly like either. So I think in a weird way, it's almost like your rejection of a personal situation to take care of yourself by maybe being a bit sort of judgy about what they've been doing, and that includes me in this reading, right, is actually going to lead them to be less judgmental, to be less strategic or scheming, to be less iffy in that sort of Miranda Richardson way we mentioned earlier, and to follow their own heart in the way that you have, whether or not you ever encounter them again, right? So I know that this is quite a scary situation, and I know that in asking where you fit in and who's doing what and all of that, you may feel very tense. Perhaps that's even why I'm releasing it on Halloween, right? Because whether or not you see it live, this whole thing is a bit of a horror show for you. But I don't think that that will last long. I don't think that things are as horrific long-term as they appear to be. They're just shocking in the moment because they're new, like this Lilu character. And I think that actually in embracing what it was that you always sense might be a bit more for you, even if that's just one thing, one person, one place. You can start with a food, you can start with a book, right? It doesn't have to be that you step away and you instantly know your life's purpose. It's just getting on that track of like, I enjoy this, I'll go towards this. This feels like a pull from spirit, I'll go towards that. And then you follow the route, right? You don't necessarily see around the river bend, but you know where to steer. In doing all of that, you're going to break away and actually help the people that attempted to tie you to the old to liberate themselves. And that is the broader spiritual purpose of this. So it's kind of not a scary situation when you look at it in that context. Spirit has your back because you are meant to break away. Spirit has your people's backs because they were meant to come with you on whatever your new journey is. And actually, through you as a kind of divine messenger of how to do this, how to trust is what I want to say, Spirit has this person's back because you're going to demonstrate how it is that they could be doing if they weren't in this sort of planning, plotting, scheming mode of fear and gaslighting and sort of controlling things. And if this isn't a person, if this is a situation, then again, you leaving a place or leaving a business or something like that is going to help that thing to refresh in an energetic sense and be something new for everybody else and have a different energy. All of this is about switching your own energy up to be more like yourself so that the energy of the things around you can all snap into their sort of thing of where they stand, right? Because by being the real you, by being less covert about what you're doing, and by truly moving on from something which wasn't for you, everything around you is faced with honesty, and that means they have a mirror shone up to themselves, right? They have to look at where it is that they are. And I think that it will begin a chain reaction where the people around you, either the people you love or the people you're not so fond of right now, go into a mode of reassessment which is beneficial to all. So I hope that you're clearer on where you fit in. I hope that was useful to you. If it was, please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. There will be a few readings today, so do check out the main channel page if you want a reading on a different subject, or indeed check out the playlist if you're not seeing this live, because there will be like a lucky dip of the whole channel. There's A to Z lucky dip readings where we pick words out of envelopes and do a reading on it. There's love readings, there's money readings. You do you, go for what you want to go for. But I hope you stick around. I hope to see you soon. And try to be in the mode of trust instead of fear. And even if you only know one tiny thing about where it is that you're going next, your skill set right now, or your best asset, your information going into this crown chakra that we talked about, is actually just to go for that one thing and let the rest of it work itself out. Because once you're at that one thing, the next thing will be shown to you, and the next thing. And that's how the journey works. Take care, guys.